Howdy, howdy, it's Trisha Lee. I'm here in Alberta, Canada, and I'm with my partner, Larry Lever, who's also in Alberta, Canada, and we're excited to welcome you to our Disruptive Technology Hangout. And tonight, Larry is going to be telling us more about his vision for robotics for the future and kind of the direction that robotics has been taking up to this point and where we think it should go. Larry is currently operating as the Vice President of Development for King Sunshine Solar Systems and TK Environmental, and his past is he developed and patented a technology that was used and helped to build Suncast polyurethanes, which he sold, I believe, in around 2007. And so today he's going to talk to us all about the research he's been doing about robots and robotics and what our vision for the future of this technology is. So go ahead, Larry. I'm going to mute myself because there's a bunch of background noise here.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that great introduction. I appreciate it. And I should mention that the technology that is still being used for the original patent that I had years ago. But on the topic that we're talking about today, robotics and robots in particular, I think I should mention how we've come to thinking a lot more about robots based on our company, King Sunshine Solar Systems, is I think it has a lot to do with how robots of the future are probably going to work. And I think it has a lot to do with some countries already starting to get on board with robotic technology. I know that Japan has actually replaced 30% of its labor workforce simply by using robots to do menial tasks that are very repetitive, that don't require a lot of skill. Some of them require skill. It all depends on how the robots have been programmed. And maybe we should dispel a lot of the myths about robots. There's been a lot of Hollywood movies that have come out in the past putting robots in a bad light, as it seems to be a common theme where robots have been given some sort of capability of making life difficult for human beings and destroying stuff and things like that, that the movies seem to really feed on as far as having something to actually show people for entertainment. The truth of the matter is robots can only do what we tell them to do. They are a simple tool, just like a shovel, for example. Years ago, when man was just starting to progress, I guess maybe even cavemen were digging with their hands and gnawing on the ground to dig holes and basically using their bodies to do work. And then one of them came up with this idea that they could use a stone to actually dig into the ground. And it didn't seem like a problem back then, and it's still not a problem today. So you can use a shovel instead of using your hands to dig holes. And we've come even further in that regard to using steam shovels and then using the type of earth-moving equipment that we have today. If you can imagine how many people it would be required to do that sort of labor, it would just be incredible. It's like when you think of all the things that man has been building by using tools. And so a robot is simply another tool. That's all it is. They're a very sophisticated tool. Now that computers have become more and more involved with robotics and robots in general. Companies, for example, Boston Dynamics and Fanuc, ABB, and they're pretty big companies. They've started using a lot of robotic arms for doing a lot of the repetitive work in factories. Repetitive work that actually cause injury, a lot of injury to humans, chronic illnesses, chronic problems with joints and ligaments, things like that. Just because the jobs are so repetitive, a lot of robotic arms are now being used to replace those sort of tools, or sorry, to replace the humans in assembly lines, things like of that nature. And so when we think of robotics, I think it's very important to think of a robot as simply as a tool. So if you have an application that requires, uh, what's a good example? A Roomba has been a robot that's been around for some time, and what the Roomba does, it actually cleans your carpets, it keeps your floors clean, and they're actually a thinking robot where they know what their job is because those robots have been designed simply to clean the floor. And that's what they do. They vacuum carpets, they mop floors, that sort of thing. That's all they do. They won't all of a sudden take over your computer and start using the internet or something crazy like that. They're a tool, and they're specifically meant for that job, that purpose of keeping the floor clean. And from what I understand, they're quite reliable. Now, the reason why we started thinking about that with our company, with the solar company, is because robots like this run on electricity, and they have a battery that makes them run. They're like a battery-operated toy. And what they do is they work and they clean the carpets during the day, and or actually all the time. They run 24/7. They don't get tired. They just run low on batteries, and they're smart enough to know how to recharge themselves. So once one of these Roombas is cleaning the carpets and it starts running low on energy, it'll find its way to its charging station, which is pretty impressive considering how small the robot is and the kind of job it does. So it will actually, it is programmed that once it leaves its charging station and goes about cleaning the floors, doing its job, it knows when its battery starts getting low, it has to get back to its charging port, which is what it does. It returns back to the charging port to charge itself up. I'm not sure exactly how long they take to charge. Probably it's not that long, considering that your floors are always getting dirty, so they always have to be cleaned. And so it's been a really good robotic invention, and because it runs on batteries, what we're looking at doing a lot right now with King Sunshine Solar Systems is actually how are we going to be using our technology once our testing is complete. And I think one of our team guys, the guy who built the stand that our equipment sits on, Lee, had this, I thought at the time was kind of a wacky idea, the way he was designing the stand, because we started talking a little bit about robots, and he says, well, if you want, I could make the stand have legs that would move. So not only would the solar heat collector and electrocrown be able to make electricity, it could actually walk around while it's making electricity. And I never thought of anything like that. I was trying to think of, well, why would we want to do that? with our technology, and it kind of makes sense that sometimes you need power and there's no way to charge something up. So why not have the power supply come to where it's actually required? Uh, I'm not sure if we're actually going to see that happen, or when that'll happen, or the situation with that, which would make that a necessity. But it's actually an interesting concept because I don't know if solar panels could do that. It'd probably be a little more complex with them, but I think for our technology, our system will have that capability to actually make electricity, and once it's making electricity, you'll be able to move around at the same time. And that is sort of where we're seeing the connection between what we're doing now and possibly the future of what we will be doing when there's no getting around it. Robotics are growing, and they're starting to replace a lot more menial kind of tasks that humans are doing right now all over the world. And so there, like I said, there's some countries that are a little bit ahead of it. But I think the idea of having robots provide us with the necessities of life eventually, food, shelter, and clothing, once we have those covered for ourselves, it really, if this is covered by robots doing these tasks for us, it really kind of makes you rethink what humans will be able to do at that point in time. When the necessities of life are taken care of, there is a lot less need for a lot of things that we have right now, including money. When things are provided for you by machinery that actually do the jobs, frees up a lot of time for the humans. So that's kind of what I'd like to discuss a little bit more in detail, as to what, by having robots providing the necessities of life, what are we going to do? What are humans, if we can imagine, what are humans going to actually desire once we have these needs met by tools, our machines that we've built? So what do you think about that as far as a possibility, and what would your thoughts be on what humans would be desiring once they had the necessities of life taken care of?
I think it's pretty much the same as it already is. Like, people just want more health, wealth, and time. And I think that the health and the wealth part of the equation would be met once the time was freed up, because most people are working a job that doesn't really, that provides them with income, but it's not really a means of building wealth. And being able to build wealth out of that income takes time. And so you just free people's time up so that they can pursue the health and the wealth that they're looking for in life, which is, they already are. It's just they'll have the time to actually be able to find it.
Well, that's interesting. I thought about the wealth end of things, and it actually makes me think of the original concept of communism for some strange reason. Not the communism that we're used to from our past with communist countries, or current present day communist countries, because those are actually the actual concept of communism is slightly disrupted by government powers, because in true communism there really isn't a government power. And so would humans really have the desire for greater wealth once all their needs are met? Like you said, if humans are now freed up from menial tasks and having to go to work to do some sort of job, I was thinking, what other things in life would humans desire other than wealth? And I keeping in mind, you know, greed is something that it seems everybody has a little bit of, and that's kind of where the communism side of things entered my mind as being a possible effect of having all the our needs met by our tools.
Yeah, I don't know if communism really relates that much, but since Dan hopped on here kind of in the middle of the conversation, I'll get you to like take some time to introduce him, but I just want to let everybody know that Dan's been a really great help. He's part of our mastermind for our solar power business, and he's been helping Larry out, giving him some space to work. And can you just go ahead and introduce him, Larry?
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Yeah, Dan has been an integral part of where King Sunshine Solar Systems is now going, and we seem to be making a lot more progress working together because it seems that as the team grows, a lot of issues that come up, me and Dan can discuss them before they become an actual issue that may need concern down the road, and we can actually discuss these development situations in the development of the technology before they become problems, or to make sure things run a lot more smoothly. I don't know. Did you have anything else to add to that, Dan?
I was looking forward to some sun today.
Me too.
Ready? Yeah, no, it's been interesting. I've been looking for people to discuss that kind of technology with other people. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of new things. It's changing real fast all the time.
Definitely.
And that's exactly why we started this hangout, although like I don't think any of us have particular expertise as far as engineering or any of this technology, but we just have interest in it and think that a lot of the things that are happening, and like you say, it's so fast, it warrants discussion, and I'm sure other people out there are interested in these topics too. And so just to clarify on what Larry was saying, like our vision is to be able to replace the workforce with a solar-powered army of robots. And getting back to what Larry was talking about, I think that most people out there, not all, but most people out there don't really feel a passionate connection to their job, to the income that they're earning. And I think by replacing menial tasks like sweeping floors and stuff like that with robots, that'll give people the opportunity to really seek and pursue their passions in life, whether it be art or music or all of these things that, like, even in our school system, they've been put on the back burner in a lot of ways. Like funding has been cut for a lot of music programs all in schools all around the globe, as far as I know, because the focus is on kind of just like earning income, and people just see that as, oh, I have to get a job and work for a company, and they see their actual passion. It's like as music attainable as, like, you know, like 0.01% is actually able to turn their passion into income. And with robots serving us, that'll just free up our time and resources to be able to pursue those things rather than feeling kind of stuck in a system that isn't serving us.
Oh, exactly. And I think that brings me back to what humans actually desire once all their needs are met. Because I can't think of a time in human existence that actually occurred that we know of in civilization, where you know, there was some good times in a lot of different civilizations that didn't last forever for whatever reason. A lot of those situations ended. Like the Mayans had a lot of very advanced technology. They didn't have robots, but And again, we're not sure exactly what they had. It's because they were far more advanced than we are today in some aspects regarding solar. So I think that is something that a person actually would have to sit back and really, really focus on and consider. I tried doing it myself, imagining what it would be like to have not so much humanoid robots. I really think humanoid robots are a bit of an off tangent thing that's kind of a novelty. We already have human beings, and human beings are capable of doing a lot of things. I think what robots as a tool, human beings are not tools. I think robots should be considered strictly as tools rather than companions, because if there's humans already that have free time, I think, as you mentioned, Trish, I think that enables us to become more sociable and be able to focus on things like family and meeting people, traveling. A lot of these things would be easier, much more easily done, having a lot of these things taken care of. And you can look at the Google car, which it's basically a robot that you get inside of, and it takes you places. So you don't have to do anything. This is technology that exists now. This is a robotic vehicle, which it's definitely going to be licensed to travel around. I cannot see it being hindered by any kind of restrictions, because it's quite safe. It's actually safer to get into a Google car than to actually drive a vehicle yourself. So when you look at that, if the human desires something on the planet, being in a different location, going on vacation way more often, because they don't have the humans, people don't have things that they're responsible to do other than the necessities of life. And I'm including in that taking care of families. So parents would have to take care of their kids, and
what's really cool is that with the speed of technology and new technology, there's sorry about that. There's an opportunity for these robots are still probably going to have to be operated by humans, but with the internet and all the wireless technology that exists, potentially your job could be operating one of these robots. But with this wireless technology, you can theoretically do that from anywhere in the world. So you could be like in the Bahamas enjoying the sunshine while you're operating a robot that's in some like gravel pit back here in Canada or something like that. There's just so much possibility and potential. And just to touch on like what I talked about last week, because Larry wasn't able to really get on last week, there is some fear, but a lot of it's manufactured. Like the programming, like especially in television and in movies, is to keep us afraid, because they don't really want people to have all this free time on their hands, because then they start thinking and they start realizing that right now that robots or this technology is like there, and there's not really any reason that it's not already implemented in replacing a lot of these low pay and low engagement jobs that are out there, especially the dangerous ones. And because there's a lack of will, because the people at the top want to keep us distracted, chasing money, and not paying attention to like the activities of our government, for example, to the like what's going on with our food, what's going on with our air and water quality, all of these things. Most people just don't have time to contemplate or think about, because they're in pursuit of that wealth that we initially talked about. And as part of the system, it's like somewhat unobtainable for the average person, but just your thoughts are preoccupied with that rather than really stepping back and looking at the big picture and like why these things are happening. This technology is not being utilized to its full capability, and part of that is the lack of will. And then they create a lot of fear around it. Like they have this fear in a lot of science fiction themes are like artificial intelligence like taking over and like meaning us harm. And there are robots right now that cause harm. Like you look at the drone strikes, but the fact of the matter, it's not the robots that are the destructive force. It's what's the people behind those particular robots, the people that own those drones, that have programmed those drones of where to, you know, do their strikes and stuff that are causing the damage. So it's all like these robots are machines, and so that science fiction programming that somehow they're going to turn against us. Well, they already have been turned against us, but not the robots themselves. It's the people. So just to keep that in mind, that it's like that fear. We as a common humanity have allowed that fear to prevent this technology from being fully implemented and utilized. There's also economic fear where people are like, well, if the robot takes my job, you know, I'm going to starve kind of idea. You guys have any comments on that stuff?
I don't think so. I think personally that if I have all my needs being met by robots from every little task there is, there's no. I don't see. I think it creates.
The point is that you don't have robots to do every task for you. You don't have that yet, but you could. There's no technological barrier preventing us from having all these different kinds of robotic devices doing those tasks for us, but that doesn't exist right now.
No,
and
it doesn't.
There's reasons for that. It's not just because it's too expensive or it's too not proven. There's reasons, and it comes out of this culture of fear.
That's definitely a possibility. I guess I just see it a little differently. My imagination kind of runs wild with what the robots are actually capable of doing, and so that the fear of a robot taking someone's job, I would be relieved if I was doing a labor-intensive job and a robot was to come along and say, okay, take the rest of the day off. That would be fabulous. Take the rest of your life off and go on holidays. I think that's. I don't see it as being fear, and where that fear comes from, I'm not exactly sure. It's maybe a fear of loss of security, just because we, as a society today, are so reliant on employment, and the loss of employment is a huge concern today because there is no the robot workforce isn't there yet, and so the what you were mentioning about the safety of robots, there has been accidents in the past involving humans, but it is always because of human error that these accidents have happened. So it's never the tool's fault, it's the person working the tool. And I think it's important to always remember that these robots are basically tools. And so with the technology that's available today, what I'd like to see is a basic a global mastermind of all the robotic companies that are in operation today, somehow joined together as a group and solving a lot of these problems together, because there's so much different technology held by all these different companies that if they were all to work together, with one common goal, things would get done much faster, because the technology exists now that robots can pretty much do everything. Everything we can imagine, they can actually do. And so I think the most impressive technology I've seen so far is as robotic arms that are actually teachable. You can actually teach an arm very similar to the way children are taught how to tie their shoelaces or how to catch a ball. In fact, this one robot demonstration I saw was how they taught a robotic arm how to catch a ball, and it was simply by um, by showing the motions, by guiding the robotic arm in the positions as if the human's arm was the robotic arm. Eventually, the robot somehow learns how to catch what is being thrown to it, and once it learns how to do it, it can do it on its own. So that process can be applied to so many different things that it actually boggles the mind. You can whatever the human's capable of doing, the robot can duplicate.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point, is that we know the technology is available. And so for me, I just look at it as like, it really actually like pisses me off that I don't have a robot to clean my toilet, and yet the military has these drones, which acts like drones. That's like a robot, a flying robot, that they're using to like maim people. It's just really frustrating to think about. And so definitely there's something lacking as far as the will of the people to have these devices. I'm not, like, I'm pretty sure I understand what the barriers are, and it's all this like elite forces that are trying to like control the mass population, and they actually do a pretty good job of it. Like for me and Larry, talking about this stuff is pretty typical. Like we talk about it really regular, but the average person, they see it as like hokum, and like, you know, there's rather than realize that, you know, that's totally possible for us to have these things. A lot of people just think like, no, that's crazy. That's crazy that to have, you know, that kind of technology, to have access to it, and how could it go wrong? Because we've been like specifically trained to believe that this technology at some point can turn on us, which I think is pretty far-fetched. And we've also been like programmed to believe that, you know, it's always about jobs. Like when they talk about the economy, it's always about like people have to have jobs. Well, I take the total opposite idea of that, is that no, people have to start their own businesses and support local businesses and stop depending on these corporations that are really just draining our society of its wealth, rather than providing. Like you look at a corporation like Walmart, like they haven't really provided good jobs for people. They've taken over so many small family businesses have been pushed out of the marketplace by a big faceless corporation like Walmart, and then, you know, they're replacing real entrepreneurs with these jobs that are like, even the management at Walmart, like the top management, doesn't really make very much money compared to like a business owner's ability to earn, or like some person in some skilled business like a welder or something like that probably earns like twice as much as your average manager in like in any of those big corporate type box stores that have just totally infiltrated the whole world and got everybody on this consumerism kick and got everybody buying these like cheap Chinese slave goods, when, you know, the reality is that the key to class mobility has always been entrepreneurship and the ability for businesses to run. And it was all like mom and pop shops when I was young growing up, and now it's just all big box stores. So that's like a part of why we don't have access to these devices. People aren't even building them because they're because of that fear factor. And it's like from what I can tell, it's very planned. Like it's planned. They've planned to keep this robotic technology away from the general public because they know that it will free us up the time to think about what they're actually doing to us. So like with chemtrails and what they've done to our food and all that kind of stuff, it's just another piece of the puzzle that the robotic technology is kind of, it's almost like they're hoarding it. Because like the best of that robotic technology, who's got it? Who's got the best of the best robotic technology?
Company.
Military.
Well, the military has its fingers in pretty much everything. And getting back to what you were saying about the robots.
Hold on, I just got to step away for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the fear factor in robots. While you were speaking, I was thinking about the old saying, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And I think that's been an issue with weaponry for a long time. It's not the fact that there's a weapon, it's how the weapon is used. And I think as a society, we got to learn not to use weapons anymore. And I think it's a little bit like utopia when you consider robots handling all our tasks. And so I guess that's a real issue, is changing how people think, changing maybe even not how they think, but the way they think. Where people have this fear, like you're mentioning, it's what causes that fear. And I think there's nothing to fear except fear itself. That's another old cliche that's still quite valid today. So it's kind of a challenge. And so, but I think based on this hangout, what we're actually looking at is the possibility. It might not exist yet, but the possibility of robots doing jobs, it actually changes the whole way the world works. And so that would, and like I said at the beginning of this hangout, it's providing the necessities of life. Once the necessities of life are covered, there's only, I guess, emotions to deal with. And so why, if you want to break things down, why do people have weapons? It's to protect what they've got. But if they've got all they need, what do they need weapons for?
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's like the vision. And I don't know, it's pretty difficult though, people that to not have weapons though, because I don't know, there's just things to defend yourself from. But I guess if you got a robot that'll defend you, then your robot could have the weapons.
And the robot's, like I say, a tool. So the way the robot, what you teach the robot to do is what the robot's going to do. It's not going to do more. It's not going to do less. It's a tool. It's going to do what you taught it to do. So in regards to robotic things like drones, the drones aren't going to kill people. It's the people that are programming the drones that are killing people. So that's I think where we have to maybe get the United Nations involved with this, simply because if we have the world all working together and living in harmony, like I say, bringing us back to the word utopia, that would be an ideal situation. Could we handle it as human beings? I'm not sure. Would people be able to handle that sort of lifestyle, or is that stress related to fear a necessity of life? I don't think it is. I think it's wasted energy is really what it is. Any kind of fear is wasted energy.
Oh, I totally agree. It's just a matter of like it's been planned and programmed, and most people aren't even aware. But that they. But if you talk to people about it, people are seriously believe that there is potential for AI to turn on us. That somehow this artificial intelligence that we created, I definitely see that potential, but I see it as getting into the wrong hands of the wrong people, which it kind of already is. But it's so what the fight is to be able to get the technology into everybody's hands. Because right now, most of these robotic companies are contracting to the military or these big faceless corporations. There's not a lot of access to the technology for like your average person or for a small company. And I think the reason for that is they probably restrict access to a lot of robotic technology and parts because they know what they're doing with it. So they probably feel like there's other bad people that would do similar things, but they wouldn't control it or something.
Anybody can purchase robotics. If you look
that's good.
Well, if you look at some of the most successful companies globally, there's a lot in Japan. If you look at the lifestyle in Japan, I think you'll see that there's a lot more happier people in Japan simply because they're leading the way by replacing that workforce with robotics. You really have to look at how it's affecting that society in Japan. I think that whatever work is working there would work globally.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like a point to make though is it is a cultural thing because it's definitely like North America. Like I think a lot of our science fiction movies are circulated around the globe. However, I can't see people in Japan really flocking to these science fiction movies where it's in a different language. Like on some, probably like the blockbusters, like the Marvel comic characters and stuff, I imagine you go and watch those with subtitles. But a lot of the, lower end movies that talk about this stuff, they may not have access to. And then I think their media culture is a lot different too. When you go to all kinds of different places in the world, it is different. Like I watch a lot of RTV, which is like the Russian television, and they tend to tell different news stories than what you get around here. It just seems like like when that plane crashed or whatever in the Ukraine, they had a totally different take on the RTV broadcast when they talked about it as compared to the news broadcasters in North America sharing it like on the radio. I didn't see it on TV, but it seems like it's a cultural thing to a point. So yeah, like Japan, they probably have easier access to the technology. I don't know about here. I'm sure that there's some restrictions on certain robotic technology as far as the average company or small business or individual person purchasing it. I'm not sure, but I would imagine the best of the best technology is like kept away from us. I believe that, but maybe that's not true.
I'm not sure. What do you think about that, Dan?
Well, I'm just thinking that I've read articles in the paper where the drones are getting to be a problem already, uh, going into other people's spaces. So they got to come up with some rules of what these people with drones can and can't do. And
Right.
I think they're already a problem around. Was there a problem around airports? I think there's a problem around fires because they had to. There's a story where they had to ground some of their water bombers because of drones. People wanted to see what the fires are looking like, and they can cause a problem too. So.
Oh, these are like the personal drones with like video cameras and stuff.
There's getting to be too many of them out there already, but it looks, or they got to cut them up some real rules, but then you got to police it. So you can solve a problem, you can also create another one.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's like life in general, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword when you start changing the standard of lifestyle.
Yeah.
It can sometimes lead to some issues. But yeah, I'm very familiar with the drones, being an RC enthusiast and having my own quadcopter that I like to play with. I know that it's a challenge. You got to stay out of the plane's airspace so planes can take off and land safely and fly safely.
And people's property, because they got the right to their privacy.
That's true.
So yeah, I'm just getting my head wrapped around all these robots things that you're talking about, because I think I think it's got to be a slow process. You can't go too fast with it.
Yeah, it's definitely not overnight.
And it's still, people have to keep busy too. You can't just have robots do everything. You got to be physically active, but not to the. I believe in the fact that we need more time for ourselves, not just working for the corporations.
That's right.
Or to survive.
Yeah, definitely.
There's ways to do it.
For me, I see that, there's stuff that I do that I don't enjoy, that if a robot was doing it, I'd find stuff to do. Like, I wouldn't just sit there and do nothing. I'd be riding the horse or playing with my kids, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people, typically, there's a lot of jobs that wouldn't be done by robots. And then, of course, like, there's the whole maintenance thing, and it's like with, when they had wagon wheels, it was like the best maker of wagon wheels was the last one to close their doors, but eventually even the best of the technology that's run its course finishes, and those people didn't just die. Like, when they had stopped selling wagon wheels because everybody was using tires, they found other pursuits and other ways.
You adapt or die.
Yeah, exactly. So.
But you also,
yeah, definitely it has to be a slower transition for a lot of things. Like, my focus the first thing would be the dangerous jobs, like where people are up on scaffolding and stuff like that, like having them on the ground with controls of a machine doing the actual work so that they're out of harm's way. That would be the first place I'd like to see it, the robots implemented for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile getting rid of the most dangerous jobs. In fact, it's an interesting point you make that there's the military right now is highly involved with replacing the firefighters on battleships and other types of ocean vessels with robots, where robots can actually go in to very dangerous places and fight the fires. And we're talking about drones that actually, one of the robots that goes through these areas in training to fight the fires within a ship, it's not a walking machine. It's actually something that's flying. It's a multi, what do they call it? It's like a quadcopter, but with several propellers, and they're quite powerful and very accurate. So that is a really good point, Trish, is getting rid of these the dangerous situations that can occur. get humans out of harm's way, I think is definitely a start. So let's stop having wars. Maybe just have quadcopter fights.
Well, what I was thinking is if we could stop the wars, you don't need to fight. You don't need that military. We won't need the robots to go in to fight the fires because we won't need the military ship. We don't need all this. The government of the U.S. spends more money on military than most countries do on the operation of their whole country.
Yeah, definitely.
So we got to start thinking about how much stuff do we really need. And I think right now we're working to try to get too much stuff that we don't really need. We can backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you don't need the big wages because you don't need all this materialistic mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, and with no utility bills, that means they invest more too. So
that'll cut. If you cut your expenses, you don't need the huge wages that everybody is chasing after, or the amount of hours you need to work to get that. Just a thought.
Yeah, definitely robots could alleviate some of that. It's a pain for a lot of people. A lot of people put in more hours than what they want, than what they'd like to. And in some cases, it's because they require the extra money, but in a lot of cases, it's just to...
We're carrying too much debt trying to buy the stuff that we want.
Yeah. To prop up this image that they're trying to create for themselves and stuff, which is really unhealthy. So it would be nice to see all of society make a shift towards pursuing their heart's desire instead of just chasing money.
In regards to the drones affecting the flight paths of forest fighters, doesn't it make more sense to get the forest fighters out of there and get the robotics out into the forest fighting the fires?
Yeah.
That would make sense.
It still comes down to a cost and get those robots to the point where they can actually do the job with minimal problems.
That's right.
It takes humans to do that, to get it started. So it's still a lot of work just to get it to where it'll work.
Definitely.
Well, maybe it's going to be the job of the military to get all this stuff done.
Well, it would be nice if they could do something constructive for a change.
That would be great.
I'd rather Canada be peacekeepers again instead of sending men overseas to die for something they don't really understand what they're doing it for. The U.S. has done, what is it? The U.S. has been at war out of their 200, how many years history they have? They said there's only about 20 years that the U.S. has not had a war. Their track record is terrible.
Well, it's kind of a cultural thing too, because it's very frustrating. Like I talk to certain people here that are really gung ho about, they like to study the war history. They glorify the machines, like, oh, this tank was this special tank, and this plane had this special this, and people are really. There's a whole culture of people that are really like warmongers. And you try to talk to them about 9/11, and it's like, nope, it was Muslims, and the Muslims, those extremists, have got to go, and they aren't able to wrap their head around the bigger picture that it's something of that magnitude had to take organization from a lot of different sources, and it's not just a specific group of people that pulled that out of the hat. It's a much bigger picture. And like you say, talk about Building 7. Half the people I talk to about Building 7 don't even know that it exists. Don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a little off topic, but the more you fight extremists, the more extremists you create.
Right, but that's where the push for war is coming from. It's very well orchestrated, and they have, I'd say, a majority, at least in North America, a majority of the people they're either afraid to ask the questions or to admit that they know something's not right, because they think their name will get on some list or something, or they're just ignorant. It's frustrating.
Yeah, but less war, less robots.
Yeah, more robots, less
Easier
war.
to get them to do what we need.
That's right. And I think that's pretty much wrapping up this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming to the top of the hour, so thank you so much, Larry and Dan, for the discussion, and I think it's pretty good, and we'll be back Monday, same time, same place. So anybody who might be out there watching on the page, in less than 5 minutes, there you can click the button below the video, and you can access the Empower Network training. That should be actually, I think they're doing a repeat tonight. It's not a live one, but it's with Mike Hobbs and the company owner. So definitely check that out, because internet marketing is a huge disruptive technology. Just last year, Walmart closed like hundreds of its stores, and I've heard whispers of Chapter 11 for Sears, because the whole society is shifting from a brick and mortar economy to click and order. More and more people are starting to realize that, hey, I don't have to get in my car and drive to Walmart. I can just go to this website and they'll deliver it right to my door. Like, a lot of the same products that are on the shelves can be brought to us now via the internet. So internet marketing is a skill set that I advocate and that I'm super excited to share with people, because it's definitely disrupting the marketplace, that people are making all these purchases online, and it's very simple for an individual to become an affiliate, to sell any kind of product that you want or service, and to use internet marketing to do that more effectively. So whether you already have a business, product, or service that you're looking to capitalize on the internet as and the market that exists there, or if you're looking to start your own enterprise, the Empower Network has great resources and information, and if you click the button below and get on the All Access training, you're going to learn all kinds of information and strategies that can help you to grow an existing business or to start your own business using the disruptive technology that is internet marketing. Do you guys have any final comments?
No, I think that I think we've kind of discussed this pretty thoroughly, and like, getting back to my original point is that robots are going to be tools that we're going to be using a lot more in the future here. And yes, they're probably going to replacing a lot of jobs, but guess what? Computers did that too, and everybody seems to be
Moving along.
handling it.
Yeah, definitely. Computers have become a huge tool.
Well, this wouldn't be possible 20 years ago.
That's right.
Only science fiction said you could see somebody while you're talking to them on a phone.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dan, and
Yeah,
good to see you again as
thanks.
always, Larry. And we'll be back on Monday, and hopefully by Monday we can talk about King Sunshine, because Larry has some tests planned. Hopefully between now and Monday we'll have a big update on how that goes. So we'll see you back here on Monday, everybody. Thanks for watching. Before I go, I want to let everybody know I'm a firm believer that in this life, absolutely anybody can be, do, and have anything they want. Or we can have everything we want, and I choose everything, and I hope you will too, because you can. So click the button and find out how. And if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you out in the pasture. Bye, everybody.